Welcome to the PRsonal Podcast, the podcast where we get to meet the real person behind the professional. I'm your host, Charlotte Nichols from Harvey and Hugo, and I'm really excited to be joined by Sharon Sinclair Williams, who is director at SSW Consulting and The Digital Gene. Sharon, why do you want to grow old disgracefully?
Why do I want to grow old disgracefully? It's an interesting question, and we hear it a lot as women, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's just another one of those questions, really, that gets thrown at women. We don't really ask that of men. And I think it's just, another sort of level as to why should I think about whether it's gracefully or disgracefully? I just want to grow old. I just want to keep living my life. And I don't really think it's about being graceful or disgraceful. It's just allowing yourself to grow old. And that question is another one of those constructs by society.
Absolutely.
That is thrown at women. And it's a stupid question, really.
Yeah, good point. And have you ever been discriminated against because of your age?
That's a good question. Not that I can actually pinpoint, but it's a feeling that you sometimes get in certain situations, in certain rooms and conversations, and you think, I wonder why I've not been included. Is that because of my age? Especially sort of like for almost the last 20 years working in the tech industry.
Yeah.
You're classed as old when you're 35.
Yeah.
So to still be around and to be a woman and constantly evolving and pivoting all the different things that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
It's almost like you shouldn't really even be in the room.
What do you think's kept you around so long?
I'm stubborn.
Love it.
I won't give in to something. If I really enjoy doing something, nobody's going to hold me back.
I love that answer. And do you think ageism affects women more than men?
Absolutely. It's a bit like the growing old disgracefully, agefully question. And God, we can talk all day about this one, Charlotte.
I know.
It does affect, men are seen as, wise and women are just sidelined. I think what it is, it's just another layer of how society treats women in general. And it just never stops, basically.
It almost gets worse.
You're all, one day you're too young, the next day you're too old.
Yeah.
So you can't ever really win.
Yeah, that's so true. And what are the common misconceptions for women about aging?
There are so many, to be honest. It's almost as if people think that some switch is flicked and you are now no longer of interest to other people, and also that you're also perhaps no longer interested in yourself, that you just have a lack of interest, that you want to fade into the wallpaper, so to speak. And actually nothing changes. Actually, I'll tell a lie. A lot does change. You actually have, you're closer on that path. What do they say? You're closer to dying than obviously you were when you were younger. There is a quote, but I can't quite remember it. But so you have an almost zest for life, that you realise that your time is getting shorter. I mean, none of us obviously know when that's going to happen. But when you are growing older, you do actually realise, hey, there's probably not many more decades, years that I've got left of living this life. So what am I going to do with it? And I think that many of us as we grow old do change, both men and women, and think, we've got to seize the day type of thing and do more of what interests us and that we have a passion for.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And how did the menopause influence your personal and professional life?
On all levels, it affected me. In the early days, I felt that it was possibly just like what I'd heard about. We know lots more now about perimenopause and menopause than we ever did. When I first started having symptoms like I had, nowhere to turn. Davina hadn't been on the TV about it. All the books hadn't been written.
Our generation's lucky.
Yeah, there were few and far between. So I had to really dig, and that was why I started writing my blog. Really, it was in 2017. It was a way of me sort of trying to reach other people and find out more about was what I experienced and was it normal? And so for a time I tried all of the, the off-the-shelf type of things and what was available. I mean, nothing very much at that point when I was about 50, 51. So we're looking at 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just snowballed. I thought I was managing it. I went to the doctor. I saw an older male GP and he put me on HRT. And he said, that's the only one there is. There's nothing else. So if that doesn't work, there's no tough, more or less were his words. And I was really grateful, to be able to try something. And again, for some time, I did think it worked. And I thought, oh, this is not too bad if this is what they're talking about. And then all of a sudden, it just sort of spiraled when I was about 55, 56. And my symptoms just got much, much worse. By this time, I was under a female GP, and we were at similar age. And she used to joke when I used to go and see her, and she used to say to me, what have you discovered now? You're doing so much research, you know more about it than me. And so we used to have like good conversations because she was going through it similar. And she was a great, great help to me. And, we tried all sorts of different HRT and they would only work for a short time and then I'd be back where I was. And when I talk about the symptoms, I mean, it's the fact that I worked for myself at that stage. I mean, I don't think I'd have been employable because some
What sort of symptoms?
Just for some days, I just couldn't. I suffered horrendously from anxiety, which I've always had, but that really peaked. So the anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. Yeah, just, my husband used to leave the house to go somewhere and I used to have to ring him and say, please come back, I think I'm going to die. And or I wanted to die. And, just terrible, terrible times, both for me and for my family around me.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's weird. I never missed a deadline for a client with the digital gene that I set up almost 8 years ago now. I never missed a deadline, regardless of how I was feeling. It was like my work really kept me grounded in a way. Even if I was sat doing it at 2 a.m, I'd be doing things.
Oh, bless you.
And just trying to work when I felt like I could. But life was really, really hard, hard for a couple of years. And as I said, my GP was phenomenal. And she said, I feel as if I've done as much with my knowledge that I can do for you, Sharon. She said, I'm going to get you on the list to see a specialist menopause nurse. And I didn't have to wait very long. And they were brilliant. It was a GP and a nurse, specialising in going through the menopause. And out of that conversation, it really sort of struck me. They said to me, has anybody ever talked to you about ADHD? And there's neurodiversity in the family, but never. It's just like a lightning bolt. I'd never sort of thought about it. For me personally, so I went back to my GP, and obviously she got the letter and everything. And it was just, she said, right, well, this is the next step that we'll take. We'll keep managing your symptoms with, however we can with the HRT, but this is the next step we'll take. And obviously I had to wait. I was going to go private, and then you hear all sorts of stories whereby if you go private, then if you do want medication, you can't, it's a real fight to get it off your GP.
Oh, right, okay.
And there was so many horror stories that I heard. And that sort of frightened me in itself. But it was weird that it was like, why hadn't I thought of that? And in a sense, even long before the actual diagnosis, it sort of calmed me in a way, because I thought, right, there's a reason why I'm feeling like this.
Yeah, and what did the menopause almost exacerbate the symptoms of ADHD? Yeah,
the research that I've done now since finding out, it's like a car crash of hormones, because everything's depleting.
Yeah.
Your estrogen, your progesterone, all the hormones, the sex hormones, they're all depleting. And obviously you've already got this deficiency of hormones, with ADHD. So it's almost like it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be tons of stuff that's going to come out now over, as we progress more with research and studies about how the menopause is affecting women. Because when I look back, the challenges that I've had in my life, and you just think, well, this is normal. This is what everybody's putting up with,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And trying to pinpoint things like, you hear people say, oh, everybody's a bit on the spectrum or everybody's a bit ADHD. Yeah, I'm sorry, but losing your shopping list every now and again is not ADHD.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When it's a challenge to really do things. Procrastination for me is a real physical thing.
Yeah.
It's mental and it's physical.
Mm-hmm.
But I realised once I'd got the diagnosis, and I waited till I was 60, so it's almost 2 years ago now, and I realised so it was like a grief process.
Okay, yeah.
Because looking back at that young girl, how she struggled at school, I was bright, but I had lots of struggles, and I just think as those struggles followed me through life, and I learned to very cleverly, sort of swerve them sometimes, which I guess is what they call high masking, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it became, so it was like a grief process of thinking if only.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really try and sort of put that behind me because I knew that was going to drag me down.
Yeah, and often the first stage of grief is anger.
Yeah.
Did you feel angry that no one had spotted it before?
Yeah, really I did. But then I also thought, well, I lived in a time where we just didn't know these things, and I just think, and the light bulb, like for all of my family, it was like,
it makes sense.
That's why, like my husband calls me his quirky bird.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you're so quirky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it did make so much sense to so many things.
Yeah, and even if you don't get treatment for it, it helps so much just understanding you and think, well, that's why I do that. That's why I do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've put so many boundaries in place now. Once over, I would know something that I would struggle with, but I wouldn't want anybody to know it. So I'd say, yes, I would do something.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And behind the scenes, the effect that would have on me.
Mm-hmm. Like the anxiety.
The actual just struggle, whatever the task would be.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not want anybody to know that I was less in somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, the complete exhaustion of like trying to pretend that I could be or do something.
Yeah.
But now I put so many boundaries in place. I just say no now.
And that's a really strong coping mechanism for you.
Massively.
Are there any others that you've learned?
Just really being kind to myself. If I've done something. So now I think, well, yeah, that might be a challenge, but it's a challenge that I want to accept, so I'm going to do it. But I know that, the way that I work, I will be absolutely depleted for a while afterwards. And now I do have a rest.
And you give yourself that grace. Yeah.
I have a rest.
Yeah.
I mean, what's so wrong with having a rest?
I know. Yeah.
I have a rest and I recharge my batteries and I accept, that I've done the best that I can. And, and I just think, God, why are we so hard on ourselves?
That's true. Yeah. And how does ADHD affect you now, day to day?
It affects me all the time because I see the signs so much now of like, yeah, that's one time when you really would have struggled doing that and now you're not doing it. Or this is going to be something big that you're going to have to try and get through today, Sharon.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But you know that you can do it. And I've actually found I've got so many tools sort of like in my arsenal that I use. Haven't gone on medication.
Okay.
I toyed for ages. Last October, I had an ECG because it's a bit like speed, the meds. You've got to make sure your heart's sound and all of that.
Okay.
And I got to the point where, with my consultant, I decided I would try the meds, had the ECG, had all the various tests, then changed my mind again.
Okay.
So I go through this like, and this is those old ways of like, how we talk to ourselves. Do you really need those meds, Sharon? And then people say to me, I think you should try them and see, what it would be like. So I veer from one to the other. But then I found something. I actually found it not last year, the year before, and it helped me in grief with my brother, which I know we're probably going to touch on. And it's called emotional freedom technique.
Oh, okay.
Or tapping, as most people know about it, EFT.
Oh, EFT, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I started practicing that. I would watch YouTube videos when I was sat at my desk on a morning. And I found that was something that I thought it grounded me.
Yeah, I've done that, and I don't know how it does.
I don't know.
Think, how is this
I've learned
working?
more because in true ADHD style, Charlotte, I'm now training to be an EFT practitioner.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Because I thought, I know how much it's helped me. And I always go all in.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. It's like, oh, this is another one to add to your list.
Yeah.
What's that CV looking like these days? But yeah, I just thought, well, if this can help me when people are open-minded, and basically it's like they describe it as acupuncture without the needles.
Okay.
And it's helped me massively in just not only with managing my ADHD, but in so many other ways.
Yeah,
in my life.
anxiety, upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Confidence.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, confidence, you know, when you get nervous about things.
So where should people tap if they're feeling a bit nervous before something?
So if you're just going to do a round of quick tapping, the meridian points are in your temple,
right,
the side of your eyes, underneath, under your nose.
Yeah,
your
I've
chin,
done that one, and I used to do under collarbone.
so your collarbone area, under your arm, and the top of your head.
Right, I've done wrists as well.
Yeah, wrists are one, and the sides of fingers.
Okay.
But they're the main sort of meridian points and basically it's a combination of talking therapy and, you know, tapping into those ancient Chinese sort of medicine styles.
Oh, it's so interesting. And I think obviously we're talking about menopause, but there's so many conditions where we instantly just prescribe drugs when there are other treatments, therapies that can be used.
Don't get me started, like Big Pharma, you know, and especially, you know, my age group, the minute you go to the doctors about something, it's like, let's get you on this, let's get you on that, because you're getting on a bit now. You just think, there are so many other ways, surely, that we can deal with things.
Definitely. And I know there's fantastic medicines out there that are like life-saving, but equally...
You've got to have them. But sometimes it is just, you know, looking at things from a different angle.
Looking at your way of life. You know, what you eat, what you do, activity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned sometimes there's big things that you need to do and you just have to kind of do them. Was the TED Talk one of those?
That was a chat. You know, that's something that I never, ever dreamed about. When I look back at that young girl, you know, who had those challenges and never spoke up at school. You know, my teachers were always saying, you know, she's so quiet. She's really good gets good grades, but she's just so quiet. We wish that she'd get more involved. And, you know, so to do something like a TEDx talk was like not on my, I wouldn't say it wasn't on my bucket list. It just wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's also funny about it is I used to think, well, and it's great what Michaela's doing there with TEDx Teesside. It's like, well, I'm just a girl from Teesside. Like, why would I be on that red dot? But yeah, when I went to the first event,
yes,
and just that feeling in the room, you know, like,
it was so powerful, wasn't it?
Like I just like fed off it for about 3 days afterwards. You know, dopamine.
Totally, yeah.
And I just thought, oh my God, this is amazing. Do you think there's a possibility, Sharon, that you think you could do one of these? And I said to Michaela, you know, I'd really like to do that. She goes, what's stopping you? Just myself, basically. So I thought, well, I'm going to have a think about it and think of what idea I could talk about for that length of time. And so, yeah, I submitted.
Yeah.
And, you know, the different rounds of the judging process. And then they were like, we really love your idea. What do you think you could do with it? And I was like, oh, shit.
And for the listeners, can you describe your idea?
So it was basically, as we touched on this morning, what it is like to grow older, you know, to not give in to all of those societal constructs and to just be your own person.
Yeah.
And it speaks to men as much as it does women, but obviously, you know, those constructs affect women more, don't they?
I think so.
And it was just like how you can grow bolder. And I've definitely grown bolder through my life.
Yes.
Even in recent years, I think with this acceptance of myself now, you know, knowing who I really am, like I've really just grabbed that and thought, you know, I like me, quite like me, and I am capable of, often what I've thought is that I've never reached my full potential.
Okay.
Because of my, you know, my ADHD, and I don't really, obviously I've said that word so many times already this morning. I don't really talk about it very much anymore. But just the things that I've held back on. And, I've said to friends, I always feel I'm just not reaching my full potential because I've got an interest-based brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the minute I lose interest,
I understand.
something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it can be the most fabulous job or project, like I'm all in. I mean, I am the best person to have on your side when I am all in.
Yeah.
And that creativity is just, off the scale. Like you want me on your side when I'm like that. But the minute I lose interest, that's it gone. And there is no pulling me back.
Really? Yeah, okay.
No.
No. Right.
And that's why I know I've worked for myself in various guises. Like most of my working life, I've had a few. I've been employed a few times. I think the most I last is about 3 years.
Okay.
Because I start to lose interest in the
Mm-hmm.
role. And it's because people still don't, but maybe they're talking about it now, how they can keep their neurodivergent colleagues, employees interested in the role that they do.
And you work with your son currently, is that right?
No, I did. He's
you
been gone for 4 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. But you've stuck at that role for 8 years. So what's the difference?
Because we brought a director, Gary, into the business in lockdown.
Okay. I remember.
Obviously, we didn't know lockdown was coming.
No.
And everybody said to us, oh, this isn't going to really be a good time to do it. And I was like, no, we're doing it. We've been talking about this for 6 months and putting things in place. So he was coming in and getting ready for Declan to be able to go.
Ah, okay.
And I've lost my train of thought there. What was I talking about?
Just about you've worked there 8 years.
How have I managed to do it for so long?
Yeah.
So, Gary is a great friend. I've known him for a long time. He understands how I tick. We take time out.
Okay, great.
It's like, obviously I've got somebody to answer to, another person who's in the business with me. But I make my own rules, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I've pivoted my role within that business so much because obviously I've seen how the market and competition and the industry is changing. So rather than sticking at the same thing, but also that's kept me interested.
So it's an advantage really in the tech industry.
Yeah.
Because things are changing rapidly.
Absolutely.
So it suits you.
And now I look, all this stuff with AI, it's like, whoa, another great thing for me to be interested in.
Oh, it's perfect.
It is. It's been the perfect role for me. So being able to pivot and just change and just, march to the beat of my own drum, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So back to the TED Talk, you've got this great idea. You've been selected to do it. What were the processes that you had to go through to get ready to go and stand on that red dot?
So it took quite a while because obviously I had to draft my talk. So
was that the hardest part?
Yeah. Because and this is the weird thing, how my brain works, right? So something that I've really wanted. I always say I love the chase. I absolutely love the chase in everything. So you think, oh, this is something you really wanted. So why aren't you prepping for it, Sharon? So I'd got this date in my diary, the 1st of August, that I was going to start it. And I did. But of course it was like, oh, squirrel, doing different things. You're meant to be getting on with this, Sharon. Yes, I will. And it took me ages. And Michaela was great because, she has a team of volunteers that are all there in the background, helping you along, helping you if you want any help sort of like looking over your talk and practicing it. So there was months of that in the run-up. It was great. But, because of the way that my brain works, I do everything last minute.
Okay.
But I knew I couldn't do this last minute.
Yeah.
Not in the same sense that I would do. When I say last minute, I literally mean, hours before sometimes, even big things in my life.
Oh, okay.
And the stress that I put on myself, but But, I recognised that this was a real big deal and I couldn't really do that in the same way. But that was a challenge in itself because my brain was sort of saying, no, this is the way you usually do it. So lots of prepping, lots of practicing. what was interesting, we had a dress rehearsal the day before the event in October.
I was there.
Oh, I don't know whether you saw me.
I think I did. Yeah.
I was shit.
I wouldn't say that.
I was everything that I wanted to say had gone from my mind. It was like my mind was empty. But what the really interesting thing was, when I got up on that stage, what they've done is they've created such a wonderful sort of safe space in a way, which is odd. Do you think, how are they doing that? But they've managed to do that. So it wasn't the stage. It wasn't the stage. It was just something on that day.
Do you think it was because this is something that my brain sometimes does to me? It knows it's not the real thing. So it's just like, well,
right,
I'm not going to perform for you.
Yeah, and I've never thought about it like that, Charlotte. Maybe that was it. And I looked over at Michaela and I thought, she's probably thinking, oh my God, she's not prepared. And the amount of times I'd practice it, Liz Atkin and I, the other girl from Teesside on the stage, we practiced with each other, and yeah, and they weren't perfect, because you almost save what level of perfection you think you might have. You almost save that for the day.
Yes.
And it's subconscious. It's not a conscious decision.
Yeah.
But it's almost in there, and the best part of it will come out on the day.
Yeah.
And Michaela kept saying, nobody knows what you're going to say. There's only me. Only me knows what you're going to say. But that in itself didn't help, because what I kept saying back to her was, but I've really worked hard to craft all these things that I need to say.
Yeah.
And if I miss any of them, I'll feel, bad for myself, because yes, I have worked on it and, improved it and thought, these are the points that I really want to get across about what it's like to grow older in society. And then what was really interesting, we had a WhatsApp group, always geeing each other up in it. And on the morning, Liz, bless her, she put something in about us all feeling nervous, and she said she'd seen this guy on YouTube, and he was like a motivational speaker, and he often spoke a lot with athletes, top performing athletes. And he'd said something about, he always asked them, what was it, something about, are they nervous? And they always said something different back about, no, they weren't anxious. They were just prepared with the energy or something. I can't remember it off the top of my head now, but they were sort of using it in a different way.
Using it as fuel,
what I mean?
almost, yeah.
And that really stuck with me. That was about 7:00 on the morning. And I thought, oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yes.
And Liz, to this day, she always said, I said, I have you to thank for putting that little thing in the WhatsApp group. And but the strange thing is, when I stepped on that stage, I'm like, I'm born for this.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you owned it.
And it really felt like, and I said to Michaela afterwards, I really felt myself, because I totally unmasked that day, which is something I very, very rarely do.
Yeah.
Because when you're moving in corporate circles, and for as long as I have, and my walls, my masks are down an awful lot these days. But, for all that many years of masking and pretending, not pretending that you are somebody else, because you're still you, but you don't want somebody to see all those quirks that you have, because it's not, I guess, acceptable in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her afterwards, I really felt like my true self on that stage. I was doing a bit of dancing, and anybody who knows me, knows that I'm always, acting the goat. I'm always the one who's having a bit of a dance, having a bit of a carry on, a joker.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how I've always dealt with things. But yeah, it felt brilliant. And like, I've wanted to get back on the stage ever since. I'm like, oh, how can I find a way to do that? Haven't so far yet, but
you will.
Yeah, I will.
But there was a really serious message there as well. But there was also, there was fun in the talk.
And that's what she said about mine, was that there was a lot, obviously it was serious, you're right. But there was some very serious, very dark, deep issues spoken about with the other speakers. And, it was a bit, I think she knew that I was going to maybe provide a bit of lightness with my personality.
Yeah, you did.
And I just loved it. And, I felt like a rock star afterwards.
Yeah.
And the amount of women that is still the ripple effect now. Your TED Talk was amazing. Like, if that's what it's like getting older, like, I can't wait to get older. You know, you've proved to us that there's nothing wrong with getting older.
Absolutely, yeah. For me, it did that as well, because, you know, you're constantly being told things, or when you're a mother, you won't be able to do this, or when you get old, you won't be able to do that. And it's just like, well, Sharon is. So
absolutely. And I mean, I still, like I said in the talk, you know, I still look in the mirror and go, oof. You know, I'm fighting against that every single day as my face and my body ages. And, you know, the way that you feel physically. But it's nothing like we're taught to believe it is.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. And I actually say, you know, as I said again, I pull out loads of things from my talk, is that at this age, I feel more powerful than ever.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's so important. And the more hardships, pain I go through, it almost transforms eventually into feeling bolder and more powerful.
Absolutely.
So, and obviously with age, you're bound to experience more things like that.
I mean, I don't think you can really, they say this, don't they? How do you really experience happiness until you know what the other end of the scale is like?
True.
You've got to experience all the bumps on the road through life, haven't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a wonderful TED Talk. And if anyone listening or viewing wants to watch it, where can they find it, Sharon?
It's over on YouTube. You just search Bolder and Older, Sharon Sinclair Williams, TEDx Teesside Women. And it's also on the TEDx Teesside Women website. You'll find the link to it there, along with all the other amazing talks.
Oh, yeah, they were all amazing.
They were.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say to anyone who's always wanted to do one, but just isn't?
Oh, just absolutely go for it. You're going to get more, you're going to gain so much more from it than you're ever going to lose by worrying about whether you think you can do it. You know, I was that person. And when people, you know, like Michaela and her team, Ben, the judge, they were amazing as well, such great support. You just think, if they believe in me, if they think I can do it, because we're all like that, aren't we? If somebody thinks we can, if you've only got that inner critic of your own going, you can't do it, you can't do it. But if other people are actually saying to you, you've got this, this is a brilliant subject, you're the perfect person to talk about it, you're just like, well, they're seeing it in me. They're seeing it in me, so come on, let's show them. And I think that's what everybody has a story in them.
Agree.
You know, like with you and, you know, these podcasts, everybody has a story, and everybody's story is worth listening to.
I agree.
And you can get through all of the barriers that are holding you back personally. And when you stand on that red dot, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to do one day. It's for me, it's thinking about what I'd want to talk about. Yeah. I think if it's a struggle for me to think about something, I'm clearly not ready. You know,
that's the hardest issue. I knew straight away what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And you've really got to nail that. You've got to have that. You've got to believe it.
That passion.
Yeah. And so I would totally agree. If that's not jumping out at you now, then no, you're not ready for it.
Yeah. And I loved what you wore on stage as well. Again, really bold. And again, your outfit today is so bold. How important is it for your identity to kind of dress the way you feel reflects yourself?
I get asked this so many times, you know. I walk into networking things, they go, oh, here she is. He's the lady with all the colours. Just coming more into my own all the time. I, like many, many women, I hid myself in black and navy and grey for so many years.
Yeah.
The biggest change for me was when I let my hair go grey.
Yeah.
Biggest change for me. I seem to be drawn. I've always loved bright colours. If you come into our home, you'll see the bright colours there reflected. So I've always liked bright colour. I just didn't necessarily use it for me and my personality. My personality was colourful, but I wasn't projecting that. But my turning grey definitely helped that, because you are naturally attracted to different colours, I think, and I've seen that happen in other women. But again, just this whole massive journey that I've been on in the last, I would say, decade. I would say since I turned 50. There's something about turning 50, and then there's something, I know I've mentioned this to you before, Charlotte, there's something about becoming postmenopausal as well.
Yes, yeah, let's talk about that.
Postmenopause, I've got a blog post drafted, but I haven't finished it yet. It's been there for quite some time. Where are all the postmenopausal women? because younger women need to see them as well.
True.
So we talk a lot about perimenopause and that journey, but we don't talk about anything afterwards.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
And it's not, what I will say is menopause is the gift that keeps on giving.
Can't wait.
I used to think that it would be almost like some nirvana that you'd step into.
Okay.
All those symptoms that you'd had, all those things that you'd had, you know, the anxiety, the hot flushes, like all of that would be gone. It's not quite like that.
Oh.
Maybe it is for some people, but I've talked to lots of women and it's generally not quite like that. Although they do subside, they are minimised. And especially for me, I'm staying on HRT as long as I can because they've proved now that it's good for so many other things.
Oh, brilliant.
You know, for bone health, density, heart, keeping your heart strong and healthy. So I'll stay on it as long as I can. But we don't talk about the postmenopause, that period after. And when I speak to some of my good friends, some of them say, oh, just had enough. Just had enough of like trying to prove yourself forever. Don't need to anymore. Especially my friends who are retired. Nearly all my best friends are retired now. And they go to me, oh, she is. She's still at it. And it's like, well, I could retire. I could stop, but I can't stop. You know, my kids joke and say, Mum, what are you doing now? What are you doing? Oh, is this your latest fad? I have many fads. But it's what keeps me alive. You know, I'll never change. I'll never change. And I know that's part of how, you know, that interest-based brain in me is. So I'll never change and that's fine. But no, I can't stop because I'm too curious about life in general. And but talking to some of our friends, it's just like they just have had enough of trying to keep proving themselves in the workplace, to society. But there are also some people, I hope like me, and I do have friends who are like me as well, that want to keep showing up and saying this is what it's like. And I talk a lot about, you know, those societal issues that we have where I think the patriarchal narrative is that they want to suppress us some more. We're not governed postmenopausal anymore really by all the swirl of hormones. You think of the monthly cycle. What it's actually doing to us.
It's like a roller
minute.
coaster every month. And you just get over 1 week and then you're into a whole new phase the next week.
And it's every minute of the day, isn't it? Things are changing hormonally within us. And I don't like to say battling because it's our biological setup. It's how we're made.
Sometimes feels like a battle,
but it does,
though.
doesn't it? And so when you don't have to battle against that anymore, it's like, wow, this is good. I think I mentioned to you once before, and I've said it to other people as well. So am I more like a man? Is this how men go through life? You know?
Because you just feel free and is everything a lot more balanced? Yeah. That must, I mean, I don't want to fast forward my life, but it must feel lovely to have that balance, almost like pre-teenager when suddenly the changes started kicking in.
Absolutely.
That freedom, that kind of, I don't know, just boldness in yourself, not afraid to be you. And then all of a sudden.
We talk about kids, don't we? Go, oh, aren't kids great because they're not bothered about anything. Well, maybe that's how we become later on. And like, shouldn't we be embracing that? And I know you've laughed before, as many other people have said when I talked about sex in my TED Talk.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that.
That's the other thing as well. It's like all this thing about stuff stopping. Why would it stop? Why, like for a woman especially, how absolutely fabulous that you're not going to worry about getting pregnant anymore. I mean, whoa, that's the first one, isn't it?
I love that part of the TED Talk.
I mean, isn't it? I mean, like if you think as a young woman, or when you know you're in a relationship but you're not ready to have a family, you can't afford it. You're trying to get on with your career. All those things that are, coming at you every single day. And then you think, oh my God, am I pregnant? And then there's the other side of the scales, like I really want to be pregnant, but I'm not yet.
The irony.
All those things, isn't it? And then all of a sudden, oh, that's gone. I can actually have sex now without worrying about those things. And what's really interesting, there's been a massive rise. I've read a few articles now about the rise of sexual diseases in over 60s.
I read that as well, yeah.
Because they're all free.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you forget how actually the condom also serves another purpose.
Well, there is that.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, it's like, why do we think things stop?
Yeah.
We're all at different phases in our life, and I would love to see more postmenopausal women showing up. And I'm going to talk more about that on my own blog and my own socials, because I think it's really important. It's absolutely fine if you want to go, you know what, I can be invisible now. And I've worked really hard and I just want to have a nice, quiet life, you know, with my family and do all those things. But there are some of us who want to be out there and still forging our careers and still trying new things. And why the hell shouldn't we?
Absolutely. It's important for the younger generations coming through. You have to see it to be it.
Well, they're going to have to work much longer, aren't they?
Yeah, that's true.
The way the world is going,
Yeah.
they're going to have to work way much longer than us. So if they can't start to see what that looks like, they're going to struggle, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And if you don't mind me asking as well, you know, when kind of you stop your periods and the cycle and the hormones all balance out, does that affect your sexual desire?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. It's you know, and as well for me, I think is when you've been in a relationship for a long time, like I've been in a relationship with my husband for like 38 years.
So
We've been
lovely.
together for, and that's has its challenges, you know.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, wow," and I go, "Yeah, say wow," because it is an actual challenge. You know, still loving and liking each other and really liking that person that you look at across the table every single day, and it's the same for men. You know, people I think always think as well that men are virile forever, and some are. But some, you know, things change for them. I think what's important is a level of honesty in your relationship. Your sort of your sexual appetite, your libido sometimes won't be on the same levels.
Yes.
And it's communication with everything.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and we do joke and say, "Oh, it's feast or famine" sometimes, isn't it? But then you think when you do come together and it's quality time, and I laugh. I say, well, you know, we're not empty nesters, but I think, oh, it must be amazing if you're empty nesters as well, completely. You do whatever you want in your house, can't you? Run around after each other with no clothes on, do whatever you want. But it's a time, and actually divorce is quite high, you know, late 50s, 60s, because people have their kids fly the nest and realise, oh, do we actually have any interests anymore when it's not about the kids?
Yeah.
And that's fine if that's the path that people go on, but it's about reconnection and communication. And I often say, he'll kill me for putting this on here, but I say it to my kids, I often say, oh, look at your dad's bum. It's always his bum I liked. And they go, oh, mother. And I go, well, that's it. I remember seeing him in those, can't remember the brand of jeans they were, but I remember thinking, oh, he's got a nice ass.
And he's still got it.
And you just think, and you just try and remember and reconnect with those reasons why you liked each other in the first place. And it never really goes.
Oh, that's
if you still like that person, it never really goes.
Yeah.
But you've got to like them.
Yeah. Sometimes the main hurdle.
Stories are at the heart of the Personal Podcast, and we're so grateful for everyone who comes on and shares them. Stories are also at the heart of a strong PR campaign. And at Harvey and Hugo, we believe that everyone's story deserves a chance to be heard. That's why we're on a mission to give you a voice amplified through the power of story. Our stories are shared in the form of press releases, social media, content marketing, videography, photography, animation, graphic design, and podcasting. Our stories aren't just heard, they're shared, watched, clicked, but most importantly, they are felt. It's this stirring of emotions that cuts through the noise to light fires within people and activate them towards your purpose. So one question for you. Are you ready to share your story? Harvey and Hugo, your voice amplified.
Okay, so we're changing the subject, something really serious and really sad.
Yeah.
But how did you feel when you found out your brother had taken his own life?
I think that was one of the biggest shocks I've ever had in my life. No clues.
Really?
No clues, absolutely. We didn't see a lot of each other. He'd, made his life down in Nottingham. When the kids was, he had kids, he was divorced and married again, but he'd had 2 children from his first marriage. And, we all had a great relationship. We used to go on family holidays together. And I look back now and I do see that he probably had some struggles all of his life. But never for 1 minute did I expect. Well, it was actually I still call her my sister-in-law, even though they weren't married.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
She actually rang my husband, Steve, because she couldn't face ringing me.
Oh, yeah.
And told him. And the weird thing was, we were having some work done in the house. We'd been having it done for a while. There was some workmen in the house, so my husband had got the call, and he said afterwards, he's like, I couldn't, like, how was I going to tell you this with all these workmen in the house?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so they'd all gone eventually by about 3:00. And he goes, right, I need to speak to you. When he puts on that voice, I know there's something coming. And I was like, what? And he shut the door. We were in the dining room at the time, and he shut the door. And he went, Jay's dead. And then, as lots of people say, it was all a blur after that. And I was like, where's my mum? My mum lives with us. And I was like, where's my mum? He's going, hang on. I was like, I've got to tell my mum. And the next few days, like as we travelled down to Nottingham and whatever, they were just all in a blur. And it doesn't sink in for ages that you think that somebody could be in such a frame of mind that they decide that's the only option. Yeah. His best friend, who he golfed regularly with, was a psychiatrist.
Right.
And he said, like even I, never saw any signs. And you think about, when I talked earlier about masking.
Yeah.
How we all mask things all the time, don't we? And he obviously was masking something.
Nobody knew.
And nobody knew.
Oh, so tragic.
And we did actually find out from his wife a bit later on that he had gone to his doctor about the year before and said he felt a bit down.
Right.
But that was all.
Yeah.
That was all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it really progressed much more from that. And I think that was, from what we found out, that was on him. He never progressed any further.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. As sometimes men don't do,
No.
Oh, and did you find out why?
Not really. We found out a few more bits of information as time progressed on, but no. We've never had any, and it's over 2 years now. We never got any closure
Does
on it.
that really trouble you?
That's a massive burden for us all, because we always want answers to everything, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah, we do.
And so when you haven't got that level of closure, you're just forever.
Yeah, it's a closure.
And the worst thing for me was because my mum, as I say, lives with us. And, there's only 2 of us, so I've got no other siblings now. And seeing that grief on my mum's face every day, how she was trying to deal with it, losing her only son in that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the way that he did it, there was no coming back. It wasn't like a cry for help. There was just no coming back from it. And so seeing my mum having to try to process that. And I used to think about it and say to my husband and to my kids, if I was able to spend some time with mum and then drive her home and then go, bye, I'll see you tomorrow, or I'll see you on Saturday, or whatever.
Yeah.
That might have helped me in some way. Yeah. But the fact that literally I was seeing her all the time, it was hard for me I felt like I was having to do more than you would normally do, because she was just always there, and I used to have to glance at her and I could see it, obviously, to lose a child in that way, whatever age they are.
Yeah.
So it was tough. We had some great help from Headlights charity.
Yeah, amazing charity.
we both went for different sessions there. What was interesting about that whole time was that I was searching for tools to help me with my menopause, and I hadn't been diagnosed, but I was on the journey for waiting for my diagnosis. So I was already, I think, in a space where I was open to tools that would help me.
Yes.
And so I always remember my mum had been saying to the counsellor that she'd been spending some time with, Sharon seems to be dealing with it so much better.
Okay.
And I'd say to my mum, first of all, Mum, he was your son. He was my brother, but he was your son, and that's a different level.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but secondly, I feel like I'm more open because I've been going through a bit of a grief process myself already. So yes, it did compound it, but I was already working through things.
Yeah.
So you could look at it and say, oh, well, that would have made it worse because then you had something else to add to it. But it didn't work that way for me. It worked as if to say, oh, well, already I'm figuring out how I feel about these things. So I think I was more open to ways
that makes sense.
To ways that I thought could help me.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's been a long, as I say, 2 years gone November. They've flown by. My niece and nephew, obviously massively, you watch them trying to find their place in life without the dad. And under those circumstances, as I were, like, nobody ever gets over that stuff.
No, you just have to figure your way through it.
You always think, when you think about suicide, you always think, did they leave a note?
Yeah.
Did they tell anybody else? I mean, obviously, if they told anybody else, you'd think, well, it wouldn't have happened, would it? Because they'd have stopped them in some way. But you think, did they leave a note? Did they write a letter? Like, nothing. He even deleted things off, like the last couple of texts to his wife off his phone. Like, he shut everything down. And you sort of wonder what changes in people's minds when they have reached that point. And I don't think we ever really know, do we?
No.
It's not something you can ever know until you're in that spot, thankfully. Don't want to ever be there.
No. Well, I'm sorry you've been through that. It sounds so traumatic.
Thank you.
How has having such a supportive husband over, did you say 38 years?
Yeah.
How has that helped you through everything you faced?
He's amazing. He is amazing. He cringes when I say this because he's a really sort of, well, I call him a grumpy old man, but he has got a bit grumpy as he's got older. But he is just he grounds me. It's like when you say the yin to yang. When I look back now and see all the things that I used to do that were part of my ADHD, I look at all the crazy, wacky things that I used to encourage him to do, and he was just always there, grounding me. And I used to have this thing where it's a really silly thing, and he could have easily said, no, it's not all right. I used to say this thing to him, this phrase, this sentence, is everything going to be all right? Didn't matter what, if it was something bad, is everything going to be all right, Nico? Yes, it is. And we've often laughed, when we usually sat with a couple of cocktails on a beach somewhere, and I go, do you remember all the time you used to say to me, Steve, is everything going to be all right? And you'd say yes, and he'd go, I know. And inside I was thinking, no, it's bloody not. This is something we're going to have to work through. But it was almost that, just him saying that to me, I felt like I could, whatever came to me, I could deal with.
Yeah.
And he knew that was that sentence that he would say, and it was just our little thing.
Oh, and I feel emotional hearing that.
No, I can see you.
Yeah.
You really look emotional.
Yeah.
And I say to him, when you go through a diagnosis for ADHD, you've got to have somebody who's known you for a long time, what they think your challenges are as well.
Oh, okay.
And obviously my mum she thought of some things, but I was like, well, how do I remember when I've obviously, it's like peeling the layers of an onion off, isn't it?
Yeah.
I said, how can she remember? So they said, well, who else has known you a long time? And I was like, well, obviously my husband. And so he wrote 2 sides of an A4 one evening, and I was sat up in my office and he brought it up and he said, shall I read it out to you? And I said, yeah. And we both started crying because I said, is that what you've had to deal with? He was like, yes, but it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
We look back now and we laugh about all of these things. And I absolutely say he's my guardian angel. And don't get me wrong, he would be the first to admit if he was sat here as well. It's not perfect.
I don't think any relationship is, if you're honest, you know.
Yeah, it's not perfect. Sometimes I go, I don't like you. Well, I don't like you either. But you just keep reconnecting and finding that way of like, you know, and yeah, there are so many temptations in life, aren't there? But you just realise what you've got at home, what you've built, that reason why you liked his bum, you know, all those sort of things. But I do believe he was sent to me for a reason.
Oh, that's so lovely.
I know, it's cute, isn't it? It is cute. And he'd be saying, what did you mention that for? And I write about it, I talk about it, I tell people, and I go, well, it's true, Steve. It's true.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. It's a lovely thing to end on.
Thank you.
But we've got our regular questions, so you're not getting away just yet. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, then 10 being the best, how would you rate yourself at the following? Number 1, how good looking are you?
7.
Excellent. How funny are you?
9.
Brilliant. How good at cooking are you?
2.
Oh, yeah. Me too. Are you just a disaster in the kitchen?
I can bake.
Oh,
I've got quite back into baking
Yeah.
over recent times. But no, I don't like cooking.
Oh,
I make too much mess as well.
Are you a singer?
A singer?
Singer, yeah.
I've just joined a choir at the start of this year.
Oh.
I joined a rock choir.
Oh, I love
I
the
go on
sound
a
of that.
Tuesday evening. So no, I can't sing. And I did say, I can't sing, but I really enjoy it.
Love it.
A song. And so the fact that there's like about 60 of you and I'm like mid to low, they've decided. I just love that
I
vibe.
love that.
It's great.
What sort of songs do you sing?
Oh, it's all like Robbie Williams, Angels, like all sort of regular songs that everybody knows.
Yeah.
We've actually, I'm going to be in a concert in August. They put on an annual concert and I've decided, yes, of course I am. Of course I'm going to be in the concert.
You're going to be back on that
And
stage.
That's in August. I was like, I'll get on that stage, won't I? In one way or another.
Oh, that's lovely.
But yeah, I do love it. It's good fun.
Brilliant. Do you drink, and are you good at drinking?
I do like a drink. I could take it or leave it though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting.
So
What score would you give yourself?
whether I like a drink or not.
It's how tolerant you are of alcohol. Like, for example, I'm a lightweight, so I'd give myself a 1 or a 2 because I'm always...
I'll tell you an interesting story. So I suffered from migraine. Again, I think that was... Suffered all through my life. I think that was linked to my cycles. Because the minute I went through menopause, no migraines anymore.
Okay.
So over the years, you learn, don't you? Like, you have migraine. To have a drink is not a good idea because it would always trigger one.
Right.
I'd be ill for about 2 days, really long time. No migraines. Now I do bottomless brunches, really easy. So my tolerance is really high. So I'd say a 9.
Really?
drink
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense a lot. That's governed by
I
hormones.
can take it or leave it, but when I go out, my friend, I'm the joke of my friend. They go, "Oh, he's Sharon who doesn't drink. Give me another one."
Brilliant. How good at parenting are you?
I think I'm a pretty good parent. I think the fact that, my kids still love us adults spending time with me and the dad, and they like going on holiday with us.
Yeah.
Obviously, the bank of mum and dad a lot of times. I'd like to think that's not the only reason they come. But I think the fact that they like spending time with us, I'd give us a solid 8.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I love seeing the pictures of you on holiday with
do
your
you?
family.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
know.
nice.
I like it.
How good a friend are you?
Again, I think I'm quite a good friend. I'm very loyal.
Yeah.
You want me in your corner all the time because I will ride or die for a friend.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give myself a 10 there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Loyalty, I think it's getting harder and harder to find. People are,
No.
and I get it's a short life and you've got to do what's best for you all the time, but everyone seems so focused on themselves, which I do understand. But then there's also what about you supporting your friends and family?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No.
How intelligent are you?
Well, again, for a vast swathe of my life, I was constantly told I was stupid. And listening to people telling you you're
Teachers.
stupid. Just because teachers, family,
family.
like even, just because, again, now not to repeat it, because my brain works differently. There's certain, functions that I really struggle with. So to actually be called for a lot of time that you're stupid.
So damaging.
Yeah, you've got no common sense. You can't do this. What's wrong with you? Yeah. All those types of things. But I think I'm highly intelligent.
Yeah, good.
I think, I'd give myself a good 8 on that. I'm not stupid. I think a lot differently.
Yeah.
And when my skill set is used, like it's off the scale. But as I say, the minute the interest is gone, there's no getting me back.
Yeah. So what score would you give yourself?
I'd say an 8.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
How kind are you?
I'd say a 9. I am.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it comes back to like trying to be a good friend as well. But I like to think that I care about a lot of the work that I've done over recent years is massively about people and the planet.
Yeah.
The planet can survive without us, but we can't survive without the planet.
Yeah.
But I think there comes a time when you, again, whether it's an age thing, whether you do look at things a lot more open-mindedly, I think what I do with people as well is I give them much more the benefit of the doubt than I used to.
Okay. Yes.
There's a reason why they're doing that.
Totally. I'm the same.
There's a reason why they've said that. It's not about me. It's them.
Yeah.
And that sort of helps you be kind.
Yeah.
And kind to yourself. Like you can't be kind to other people unless you really figured out ways of being kind to yourself.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost like the more you go through in life, it helps you develop that kindness, that understanding. When I was young, everything was black and white. And then there's like
absolutely
so many different colours. And it's
totally.
And you just understand that everyone's acting from their past or the beliefs that they have based on what they've been through.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's true what they say, the stuff that I'm learning through my EFT practitioner studies is that, the body holds the score.
Yeah.
Of everything.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And finally, sex or romping, as you like to say in your TED Talk.
Oh, I love a good romp. He's going to, all the time. When I came off that stage and he was going, oh, so you love a good romp, do you? I was like, well, it's with you, isn't it? It's not as if I'm talking about it with anybody else. Yes. Am I scoring myself on that?
Yes, please. Yeah. We're cruel like that.
Yeah. You don't want to say, you don't want to big yourself up too much.
Oh, why not?
I think I'm pretty good at that.
Brilliant. So are we going 10?
I don't think I'd be as big-headed to say a 10, but I'll say 9. I'll say 9.
Love it. Thanks for being a wonderful guest,
You're
Sharon.
very welcome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.